This is Algebra 1, homework help from lessons 79, 80, and 81. All right, so I'm on page 325. The first question is number 10. All right, so that's 2y over 4 minus y over 7 equals y minus 3 over 2. All right, the rule is, if I have an equal sign, I am eliminating the denominator. I will eliminate the denominator by multiplying every term by what would be the common denominator. So I look at 4, 7, and 2 and ask myself, what's the smallest number that all of those go into? And it would be 28, I do believe. All right, so I'm going to multiply every term by 28 because I can do that with when I have an equation. But before I multiply, I'm going to simplify. And I can only simplify terms that are multiplied. And you simplify crisscross. So I simplify the 4 and the 28. 4 goes into 4, 1, into 28, 7. I simplify the 7 and the 28. 7 goes into 7, 1, into 28, 4. The 2 and the 28 goes into 1 and 14. Then I multiply. So 7 times 2y, 14y, minus 4y. I distribute the 14 to both of the terms in the numerator. So it's 14y minus 14 times 3, that's 12, carry your 1, 42. All right, so now I'm going to subtract 14y from both sides. Look what happens. That eliminates. I'm left with negative 4y equals negative 42. And when I divide by negative 4, the value of y is 42 over 4, but I can simplify that. That's 21 halves. All right, that's number 10. I'm hiding my list. Number 11. Number 11 is next. All right, it's the same type of a problem. P over 6 minus 2p over 5, 2p over 5 equals 4p minus 5 over 15. 4p minus 5 over 15. I look at my denominators and ask myself, what is the smallest number that all three of these are factor of, go into? And it's 30. So I'm going to multiply every term by 30, but before I multiply, I will simplify. So I simplify the 6 and the 30. 6 goes into 6, 1, into 35. I simplify the 5 and the 30. 5 goes into 5, 1, into 36. 15 and 30. 15 goes into 15, 1, into 30 twice. Now I multiply. I have 5p minus 12p equals, I have to distribute the 2 to both of the terms. That's 8p minus 10. Go get me a nicer marker over here. All right, I want my p's on one side and my, so let's go ahead and combine these. That's negative 7p equals 8p minus 10. Now I'll subtract 8p from both sides, and that's negative 15p equals negative 10. I divide both sides by that negative 15, and the value of p is 10 over 15, which can be simplified to 2/5. All right, the last question from this lesson is number 12. Graph on the coordinate plane. this equation. Y equals -1/2 x plus 2. This is my y-intercept. That is where I start. It's my x-axis, my y-axis. I put a point at 2. That's where it's crossing the y-axis. I'm going to graph my slope. It falls 1 as it runs 2. So that's what I'm going to do. It falls 1 as it runs 2. There's a point. It falls 1 as it runs 2. There's a point. And then I just draw my line. Okay? Let's go to lesson 80. There are 2 questions from lesson 80. All right? The first one is number 12. Which is just like what we've done in the previous few problems. All right, so it's 2x minus 3 over 5. So I'm on page 328. Minus 2x over 10 equals 1/2. I look at my denominators, 2, 10, and 5, and ask myself what's the smallest number that all 3 of those can go into, and it's 10. So I multiply every term by 10, but before I multiply, I will simplify. I can only simplify what's multiplied. The 5 and the 10 crisscross is how you simplify. 5 goes into 5, 1 into 10, 2. Both of these just become 1. 2 goes into 10 5 times. Then I multiply. I have to distribute this 2 to both terms in that binomial. So 2 times 2x gives me 4x. Minus 2 times 3, 6. Minus 2x equals 1 times 5 is 5. I'm going to move my 6 to the other side. I'll combine my like terms, and I'm left with 2x equals 11. Divide by 2. The value of x is 11/2. The next question is number 20. Use substitution to solve. When we use substitution, we're going to have one variable equals something, and we're going to substitute that into the other equation. Okay, so instead of n sub n and n sub d, I'm just going to write nickels and dimes. So n equals d plus 12. Nickels equals dimes plus 12. The second one, 5n. 5n plus 10d equals 510. I have something for nickels. So for nickels right here, I'm going to substitute in dimes plus 12. So I have 5 times d plus 12. Right where that n is where I substituted that binomial, because that 5 has to be distributed to both of those terms. Plus 10d equals 510. I have to distribute that 5. So I have 5d plus 60, that's 5 times 12, plus 10d equals 510. I'll subtract 60 from both sides. Combine my like terms. That's 15d equals, that's 550. I divide both sides by 15. So let's do this, division. 550 divided by 15, I think it will go 3 times. That's 1545. I'm left with 100. I can only simplify. It's not going to go in an even amount. So I'm going to simplify. D equals, I'm going to divide both of them by 5. So that's 110 over 3. If we're working a word problem and it really isn't nickels and dimes, you're going to get a whole value, a whole number. an integer as opposed to a fraction. Once you solve for D, you need to go back and solve for N. So you plug that back into that first equation. All right, lesson 81. So now I am on page 335. The first question is number 5. Number 5. All right. The new hog food supplement increased weight by 2/5. So this is one where we increase by 2/5. The original is always a whole. So that the new amount, we add them. All right. New hog increase. Okay. If weight gain used to be 300, if the weight gain used to be 300 pounds, what was the new weight gain? If the weight gain used to be 300 pounds, that's originally before they ever increased it, then what is the new? All right, so we ignore the middle. Ignore the middle and write, this is really just 1. I'm going to write 1 over 7/5 equals 300 over x. Cross multiply, x equals 7/5 times 300. I can simplify that 300 in the 5 because 5 goes into 300. 5 goes into 300 60 times. 60 times 7 is 420 pounds. That's how much they weigh now, 420 pounds. All right, number 8. Number 8. Let me mark this off my list. Okay, we can use, we're going to solve them by graphing and then using substitutionary elimination. All right, so we have 2 equations. Y equals x minus 6. Look, my slope is 1. That means it rises 1 over it runs 1. My y-intercept is -6. And this one is y equals -x. There's no y-intercept, so it starts at 0. And it's -1 over 1 is going to be my slope. All right. So I need to start at -6, don't I? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is my y-axis. 1, 2, 3. I'm trying to make them 2, 3 as equal as possible. All right. So I'm going to start with this one. My y-intercept is -6. It's rise 1 as it runs 1. Rise as it runs 1. I'm going to keep going till I can get closer to this one. Rise as it runs. Rise as it runs. Rise as it runs. Rise as it runs. Okay, I feel like I have enough. It's not really a straight line, but it would be if my numbers were spot on. All right. Now this is y equals -x. So this is 0. It's going to fall 1 as it runs 1. Fall 1 as it runs 1. Fall 1 as it runs 1. Here it is. This is where those 2 are the exact same value at 3, -3. And I can draw that line. I can prove that. When x is 3, is y -3. So does 3 equal the opposite of -3? It does. I can just plug these into the 2 equations. Then plugging it into this equation, does 3 equal, I'm sorry, -3. Yeah, -3. That's my y value. Y is -3. I did this one wrong too. Does -3 equal the opposite of +3? Check, that works. Here, y, negative 3, equals x, 3 minus 6. That does equal negative 3. So here's my point. All right, number 9 is the same. We're going to graph them. It's great to practice the graphing. Let me write the equations. Y equals x plus 1. Y equals x plus 1. Y-intercept is 1. Slope is 1 over 1. Y equals negative x minus 1. Y-intercept is negative 1. My slope, fall 1 as it runs 1. All right, here's my x-axis. Here's my y-axis. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's negative 1, 2, 3. Okay, we'll start at positive 1. This one rises 1 as it runs 1. Rises as it runs. Rises as it runs. Let's see if we can draw this one. This one begins at negative 1. It falls 1 as it runs. Falls as it runs. Look, it's going to intersect right here. And that is 0 on the negative 1 on the x-axis. Negative 1 on the x-axis, 0 on the y. Let's make sure that that works. So plugging in 0 for y, does it equal the opposite of negative 1 minus 1? That's 1, positive 1 minus 1 is in fact 0. Let's plug it in this first equation. Does 0 equal negative 1 plus 1? And it does. So that is the point of concurrency that they have in common. All right, the next problem is number 10. We have two equations. Are the equations consistent, inconsistent, or dependent? All right, so we have to look at the slopes and the y-intercepts. So one is y equals x plus 5. And one is y equals x. All right, we have the same slope. The slope for this one is 1. The slope for this one is also 1. Let's look at the y-intercept. The y-intercept is 5. Here, the y-intercept is 0. I could just add plus 0. All right, same slope, different y-intercept. They are parallel lines. Parallel lines are independent and inconsistent. Okay? Independent and inconsistent. So it's inconsistent. All right, the next one, which is the last one, is number 16. Which is like some that we've already worked. Hopefully you'll get this down pat. I look at my denominators, the 2, the 3, and the 6, and all of them go into 6. So I'm going to multiply every term by 6. But before I multiply, I will simplify. So I simplify the 2 and the 6. 2 goes into 2, 1, and it goes into 6, 3. See, I don't have to write anything over 1. Anything over 1 is just what's in the numerator. So that's how we're eliminating our denominators. 3 goes into 3, 1, into 6 twice. That becomes 1, that becomes 1. I have to distribute this 3. So it's 3 times y plus 3 times 3, which is 9, minus 4y times 2 equals 1. I'll subtract 9 to move my constants to the right. Combine my 3y with my negative 8y. So I have negative 5y equals negative 8. I divide both sides by negative 5. The value of y is 8/5.